Good.
Hey.
Hey.
Kirby, you said you consider this in some ways an update to your class poem, which makes me want to hear your class poem again. I don't suppose you do
I'd
that.
have to go back to the yearbook and find it.
As would I. Okay. But
Sorry.
Is it in the yearbook?
Ed has one.
That's the yearbook.
Can you
I
find it?
don't
Ed?
know.
I
Yeah,
have
it'll be
mine
nice.
right in front of me.
It'll be in the spring supplement.
Yep,
Who's the first one to find the class poem by Kirby LaMotte?
I've got it.
Look at that.
Maybe you'll have to read it because my eyesight won't be that good.
Each generation has its blades, and we were the umbilical swordsmen. We cleaved the clinging mothers from our rib and ribbed our rinds with scandalous fruit. We rode our mangers down the years and swamped the deathbed ebbing of the old. With stallion-studded blood, we were the studs of spring. Our hair turned in the locks of youth, our mustard-tongued mouths burned history's witch. Our lips were windy with desecration. We felt the sermon fishes tugging at our tide and summoned young-yeared wishes against the cross-hooked lives. But the lines of our blood were taut and could never be broke by boys. So we pay no heed to our hauling veins. We built our bones with beer and song, with the age-old rhythm of our blood, rocked like a Hofbrau sea in the holy houses of our grandfathers' drunken dreams. Mute heritage mouthed her plasmic strength around our spine, marrowed a stillness in our bone, molded a laboring curve with our backs, shaped our thumbs with triumphs, soothed youth's negative nerve, and loosed a trumpet in the loin to sing the majesty of man. We pay no heed like children with blocks. We wild and temperate blades must topple the crown of time. Now a new hand holding kindergarten files in 2 by 2. From the womb wasting weather of our veins, hear the romper room raging of our blood. For the son is singing with his father's sin, and he cleaves from his mother with a song.
Wow.
Incredible.
55 years, Kirby, and I think I get about a third of it now. Brilliant. Brilliant. We'll have to read it. We'll have to have a rereading every reading at least.
Every 55 years.
And it seems to me as I reread it that there's a lot of repressed sexuality that courses through it.
No.
No.
I think
How
there's
would
a
you
lot
find that at Exeter?
A guy at Exeter?
I think there's
How
a
did
lot
that
of
happen?
sexuality. I'm not sure it's repressed. I think it's pretty obvious.
Well, it was for the rest of us.
I rephrase the question. I think we were, as some have mentioned, not having young women in class with us. I think we missed an opportunity to grow in multiple dimensions and to develop true friendship relationships with young women. That clearly we missed.
You know, that would be true if it weren't for summer. I learned to value summer and the girls I grew up with in the summer more than I can say, and they're still my friends.
Great.
I longed to see them by May. I was ready to go, man. Get me home.
Kirby, maybe it's the same response as to how this poem, our senior class poem, what the process of creating it was. Is it similar to your description now of I meditate and the energy flows and then the poem comes out? Or when you were a senior at Exeter, was there more work involved in your earlier years?
What I remember about that is I wrote one poem that was very hesitant and careful, and I took it to my advisor, Mr. Scott. I remember Gil Bettman last night or on Thursday night talking about how he didn't like Mr. Scott, but I loved him. He was this
I
old
loved them too.
English guy who smelled like a pipe and counted in Gaelic, and I thought he was like, I felt like I was at Oxford or something listening to him. And I took this first poem, and he was nice, but he basically said, you know, you can do better than this. So then I went and I said, what the hell, I'm just going to write. And I just wrote. That's all I remember. And I wrote. And at the time, I was very influenced by Dylan Thomas, a great drunk, but a wonderful poet. And I think there's a lot of that in there. His sort of phrasing. And then I took it back to Mr. Scott, thinking that he was going to say, this is weird. This is, however, an old English prof would say that. And he said, much better, much better. So I just went ahead with it. And all I remember is how shocked my mother was. I laughed. And the line that the grandfather's drunken dream, she just about passed out. So
I remember we were in creative writing together that senior year, Kirby. And I remember you reading parts of that to the class, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was that with Mr. Heath?
Yep.
I love that.
I did. That class was the best class I had at Exeter.
I told you his gift. Remember his gift to us when we had to buy those poems?
Absolutely. Yep.
No assignment. Just here you go, guys. Here are the 20 or so poems. Man, what a gift.
Kirby,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know, in terms of your evolution, even pre-Exeter, when did you know that you were a poet?
Well, I hesitate to call myself a poet because just like I would never call myself a spiritual teacher, because I've been with a real one. And I just sort of mutter and pick up the crumbs under the table of masters like that. But I distinctly remember in the 7th grade, hanging out at the school library, a little private school called Tower Hill School, where I went before Exeter. It was in Wilmington, Delaware. And I had this feeling that if I searched the rows of books, that I would get a hint about what I was supposed to do with my life. And I was really into reading Napoleon's maxims and great battles, because I thought that maybe I would go to the Naval Academy and become an admiral. And I don't know where I got that. And I was going back and forth, and I came across this book, and I looked at the author, and it was the one author in the whole library that didn't have his name in capital letters.
E. Cummings.
E. Cummings.
Cummings.
And I took this book and I never took it back. The collected poems of E. Cummings, which I've had from the Tower Hill School Library for God knows how many years. I'm sorry, but I had to have it. And I opened that book and I saw these words breaking all the rules and spilling off the page. And I thought, my God, I felt this rising, just this tide of excitement in my heart. And yeah, that was a moment. Then I discovered beat poets. Then that's when I discovered a senior gave me a copy of Ferlinghetti's A Coney Island of the Mind. Anybody remember that?
Oh, yeah.
By Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Man, when I was 14 years old, I went with my dad. He went to an AMA convention because he was a big deal in the AMA, and he took me with him in San Francisco. And he said, now look, Fred, you're going to have to just do what you want during the day here, because I've got to be in meetings and we'll have dinner at night. And I said, oh, okay, Dad, I think I'll figure out something. He didn't know I knew all about San Francisco. I went straight to the City Lights bookstore,
Yeah.
14 years old, and looked up Lawrence Ferlinghetti. That was like my first pilgrimage. So anyway, yeah, I love those guys.
He died recently.
I know, yeah.
He's like 100,
Yeah.
101 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a radical who published Allen Ginsberg and
Yeah.
many radical poets, and his own poetry was really fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Kirby, I have a comment and a question. The comment being, this was awakening to me because all the time that in the lower years or whatever, I thought you were a jock. And this was like shocking that you use such language. And it's really beautiful. That's one. Two, do you play that harp behind you?
I tried, but I still play the sax. I did a lot of tenor sax. Remember the Dell chords?
Yes, I remember you
Yeah.
playing
You
sax.
talk about me being a jock, and the reason I loved Exeter was because I love my contradictions. And so I played in like this rock band, and I wrote for the literary magazine, and I loved some of my courses very much, history especially. And then I played football and lacrosse. And right now I'm missing a semifinal NCAA lacrosse game, which is on TV. And, so I think if you do a lot of opposite things, it makes you a little more fulfilled instead of trying to stick to one definition of yourself. So I'm a lot of different things.
That's great. I want to check in with the class here because we made this offer of perhaps buying your book and reading it. And if you were moved in that process to pick a poem that called to you, that you would like to read back to Kirby himself and comment on what it triggered in you. So I want to just take a moment. This is not a required part of the session, but I want to find out if anyone was motivated to do that and has a poem of Kirby's that they would like to read back to him from the book Savor Eternity, One Moment at a Time.
So it's opus, actually, Kirby. And I'd read through the book. It's toward the end of the book, and I'd found some others that I liked, but this one drew my attention to it because it begins, I hear it now, a poem of one word with a capital W. And immediately I thought John 1:1 in the beginning, and I knew you meant that. But what was cool about it for me is the moment I read that line, I looked to the bottom of the poem and saw the word yes. And so I knew what the answer was. I knew what the word was from the beginning. But that made it better. So I'll read it. I hear it now, a poem of one word, a wild, insouciant, light-bearing word that thrills the heart of a gnat and spins 10 million suns from the black hole of silence on the tip of my tongue. A word that oscillates each atom, quickening the hippocampus with hope in the angry politician's reptilian brain. A word so hot it shocks that veiled lady night into revealing the starry algorithms of her dance at dawn, her lavender fingers stroking the mist away. Oh, one sweet, ever-echoing gong of impeccable magic, charged with the superconductive quantum uncertainty of poetic justice, so quietly and elegantly transforming the four horizons into one drop of honey. Even the wildest weed, the tiniest petal, scribbled with a syllable of prayer, someone has spoken it. Yes. Praise the murmurer. Now, what I like about
Praise
the
the
murmurer,
what?
the murmurer. What? I mean, I feel like when you were talking about wonder earlier, that would have been, I would have said something like that, except about this poem, it's like in your poetry, always there's this wholeness, this completeness, this kind of eternal optimism of everything being there together, probably in the breath, as you talked about it earlier. And there were two things that got me in this. One is the reptilian politician, who a lot of whom we know. And to have hope for them is pretty all-inclusive. But the other is that drop of honey at the end, the whole world in a drop of honey. And so I like the poem a lot.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. I have to say that I literally believe, this is not metaphor, I literally believe that this entire universe, as we experience it right now, you, me, all of us, for you, right now, it's all exploding out of nothingness. And we're spinning out of it, and we have no idea what it is. We've created this mind, and we have a lot of concepts about it. And sometimes the concepts help us, and sometimes our concepts create conflicts and wars and parties. But if we just take a moment to look before that mind kicks in, this is an explosion that is happening for no other reason but for us to celebrate consciousness as love, because that's all there is. That's all it is. It's just a big opportunity to celebrate this dance of wonder that unites us all in love, because that's the only response. And there's no other reason for any of it. There's no other reason for any of this.
Beautiful.
So,
Well, thank you for diving in, Henry. And
I thought it was an assignment.
you're absolutely right. And yeah, you and me, Henry, we're the creative team here, figuring out how this thing should move forward. Kirby, could you complete by reading that first poem again for us?
Didn't you have
yeah,
another?
you want me to do that or again, or read another one? You want me to
All
read
due
that one?
respect, I suggest we let Kirby do what he
Oh,
said
no, I want you to
do.
tell me what you'd like me to do.
Here's the thing is, I did not start recording until after you'd finished that poem.
All right.
And so I think it's a real important thing. 55 years.
Okay, so as I said, this is it's a poem that's been around quite a few places and published several places and several anthologies, but thinking about it this weekend, I consider this my redo of a class poem with a little more expanded identity. It's called Ancestry. My DNA results came back. Just as I suspected, my great-great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There's dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in hydrogen dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, say 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. My mud was molded with your grandmother's tears. I was the brother from a rival tribe who marched you to the sea and sold you. I was the merchant from Savannah and the cargo of blackness. I was the chain. Admit it, you have wings, vast and crystal like mine, like mine. You have sweat, dark and salty like mine, like mine. You have secrets silently singing in your blood like mine, like mine. Don't pretend that Earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we do not ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive.
Beautiful.
You're getting better every decade, Kirby, I have to say. That's a brilliant piece of work, and we look forward to hearing from you every time we gather. I'm considering making a shift towards the theatrical arts, but I wonder if there's anything that you want to say to us as a completion of this session, Kirby.
I've already said everything I have to say, and what I ask you to do now is just take a breath, breathe in, and don't be afraid to breathe in all the troubles around you, the viruses and the political parties and the racial conflict and the violence. Breathe it all in and just hold it for one moment and transform it into your own sparkling awareness. And then breathe out. Peace.
Jeez. I think I just got the definition of an interfaith chaplain. Thank you very, very much.
And that
Thank you, Fred.
that'll be continued later by George Kinder.
Excellent.
Google Kirby's name, Alfred LaMotte, you'll get 6 more poems that just pop right up. So
For free?
you don't even have to go buy the book.
Eric, I wonder, I just like to say 30 seconds. I didn't know Kirby at Exeter. I mean, we knew each other in passing perhaps, but we really didn't meet. And I was eager to meet him for many years. I've been eager to meet him. And I don't know how long it was, 10 years ago, 10 years ago. I was also on a trip trying to meet a Zen master, Zen Roshi in his area, because we shared a love of a particular poet in Japan. And I thought, gosh, Kirby is there. This is an opportunity. So he and I got to spend a wonderful afternoon together and just laughed and sharing so much about poetry and meditation. Kirby, it's a blessing to me to have you back in the Exeter community. I do hope you'll come and read again.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Wonderful acknowledgement.